It's all right. You can chop it in however you want. My shoes off, but not quite my socks. We ready for y'all.
It's fire season.
It is. It's freaking cold.
It's fire season.
It's going to be a good 20 minutes before I feel like moderately normal
It's
at
fire
least.
making season.
Yup. We have our first snow today, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, we have our first snow.
Very early.
We got a beautiful fire that we actually need right now.
Probably
We
ought
got
to have
energy
hot
drinks.
coffee or something.
Coffee would be good.
Hot would be good right now. But you can't pop that top on a coffee, though.
Maybe a little whiskey.
Take that edge off, buddy.
Get that spicy Josh Jones take.
Yeah, I don't mind the spice.
You just ruffle feathers all over the internet.
Right? Oh, I think you're
What's he into?
just messing with the corner where the cats sleep, I think. Time
What?
out. And I've got the heater on over there trying to warm up that corner, so
Lewis,
he's probably
come here.
got his face right in the heater. He's like, what, Dad?
Hey, come here.
I'm just being a doggy. I was being
here.
a doggy. There you go,
Sit down.
under the bridge.
Hey, sit. Lay down.
I'll be good, Dad, I swear to God.
Stay.
If it's any consolation, Chloe can't stay out of that corner either. Like, I had a bunch of crap in the way, but I had to move it to turn the heater on because it was getting cold over there, and I still got to do, like, 4 thumbnails, and then I'm done with all my pre-stuff before I take off to go out hunting tomorrow.
Yeah, we have a juicy pod lined up for the boys today.
Do we?
We have all sorts of stuff. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
New bow season.
It's coming.
It's coming around the corner.
It's coming around the corner. Well, you've already got some of it. You've already got Bears out and Elites out, and Bowtech comes out in a week. I know, but I can't tell you. But yeah, it's and then 2 weeks after that, I think we get Hoyt Matthews and who else is still floating in the breeze that hasn't launched? When does Prime launch?
Well, and we just published our updated penetration test video.
Yep, there is that.
That's cool.
Yeah, the internet warriors will be super happy about that one.
Yeah.
Did you finish editing that?
Yeah.
So you know what your results were and your measured markers and whatnot? Because I know we like jotted it out kind of. But, yeah.
Yeah, we jotted out kind of the line distances in the video, but I just went off of jugs in the results because it's a standardized jug, so it's very fair. I looked at the dimensions of the jugs; they're about 5.5 inches wide. So, yeah, that's neat.
Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about it. So basically, we did the penetration test at distance. Initially, what you won't see in that video is we intended to do 20 and 40. We were running out of daylight and running out of water bottles and weren't able to get the 40 part done. But we got a demonstrable difference at 20
Yeah.
as far as jug penetration.
Yep.
You know, and there's this whole thing that people keep saying now, like the medium defines the test. That's not true. Your medium is a variable within the test that you design. So whatever medium you choose, you just want it to be fair and equitable,
Yep.
and maybe repeatable,
Of course.
and as close to simulating what a target might be in the field.
Right.
And that's the most difficult part, because a target in the field is a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, most people complaining are really overlooking how hard it is to do the same thing over and over and
Yeah.
over and be fair with it. You know, you'll get a lot of. We've gotten a lot of feedback since I said I wanted to have some kind of a measurable thing to actually test all broadheads and things like that in the future on, and I've gotten all kinds of different stuff that you throw in there that's real interesting, but they have to be measurably equal time after time after time. You know, some of them were like, you know, hide with hair on it versus leather. And I'm like, well, yeah, but how measurable is that equally? Like, how do I know?
Repeatable.
And repeatable.
Yeah.
Right. As opposed to if you just like used leather for your exterior, you can have a given material of leather and a thickness. And then you should be able to duplicate from that, at least have a relatively similar result. But that one's even kind of hard.
Because what you and I want is we want to be able to repeat this and say, do variations of it in a way that's fair, and we can communicate some sort of change or not change.
Right.
You know, is ultimately what we want. So when you think about the lab, like, you can't have changes in control.
Right.
We want, you know, repeatable.
Exactly, and that's relatively doable with what we're using now. I mean, you can. Does it exactly simulate an animal cavity? No, but it's
Yeah.
giving you a measurable, tangible thing to say this did more, this did less. I mean, you could shoot different kinds of broadheads in that medium and see a difference, and it doesn't necessarily have to be an animal cavity to be something that's measurable.
And
Most people that are testing broadheads aren't testing them on anything that's similar
yeah.
to an animal cavity to begin with. Ballistics gel is not an animal cavity.
And it's like anything when you do something your first time, you learn, you iterate, you learn, you iterate, and you just keep repeating that until you narrow into, a more refined test or whatever. So I think for our first iteration, we did a good job, and I think for our second iteration, it's a better version of an impact test.
Well, and we should probably establish how difficult what they're asking for is. If you want to shoot that farther away, you can't miss by hardly any margin to still keep the arrow in the object all the way through a line.
Yeah.
Right? It's not as simple as, well, here's a 4x6 surface area of shooting area that's all equal, right? You can't just hit that. You have to hit in damn near the middle of it. Or by the time it gets to the other side, it's going to miss the jugs, which we ran into when we started trying to shoot 40 yards. It was very hard to keep the arrow in all the jugs. We managed to get 2 before we ran out of jugs that actually managed to stay all the way in the jug. Still kind of possibly not 100% accurate result just because of where they hit, but they both did hit the jug, and we found kind of the same variation that we found at 20.
Yeah,
So
which I
think,
thought was interesting.
Well, I think 20 is more than adequate to do this at, and
I think it is
I
too.
don't think it's going to be hard to duplicate 20 in the future.
And I think 20 is most fair. I think most people are going to shoot archery at 20. And the heavy arrow argument, whether you're pro, whatever you want, I mean, my take on it is basically use whatever you're old enough to use. And if you're looking at what a lot of successful Western hunters in particular, hunters in general are using, it's like 425 to 475.
It is the most common configuration you'll
And
find.
there's plus and minuses. There's people who are a little above, a little under.
Sure.
But that tends to be kind of the mean. And, take that information for what you will and make an educated decision on what you're trying to do. But most people are going to shoot 20 or under. But why is 40 or 60 even a practical test? I mean, who's going to launch those heavier arrows that far? It's just, it's impractical for most.
Yeah, if you're trying to prove or disprove something, maybe in
Yeah,
that part, but what does it really matter? As long as I think there was a reasonable argument in the original video of you haven't let the arrow stabilize itself before you got measured a penetration. That's fair. And I think getting to 20 yards showed us that relatively well because it was a different result than we got originally. Yeah. Was it a drastically different result? It's measurably different. I wouldn't call it drastic, though. I would call it about what one would expect if you're reasonable about your thought process, I would think.
Yeah. So to kind of highlight the video, is basically between the 400 and the 800 at 20 yards, there was about 3 jugs different penetration. So the 400 grain arrow went through about 10 jugs, a little bit more, and the 800 grain arrow went through 13 jugs. And a jug is about 5 1/4, 5.5 inches.
Right.
So, and that's what we found.
Well, and after seeing this and testing it the way that we did, I don't think the water's doing anything at all. I think it's simply shooting through the jug sides. Personally, you can disagree with that, which you might, but I think that the medium of just simply the pressure that it takes to cut through this and then cut through that, because we did do broadheads instead of field points, and I was tempted to do a field point just to see if your result is coming from the broadhead or what, because the fact that we got the exact same result right out of the bow surprised me. Like I thought there'd be some, just not that much. And to not only did we get a varied result, we actually penetrated farther than we did before. Now we switched jugs to something that we thought was going to be a little more uniform to control. So I don't know if the jug had anything to do with it. Might have allowed us to penetrate more, but we penetrated more than we did right out of the bow, which was kind of surprising.
Yeah, it is surprising because it would have been interesting to see a field point because, I always thought that a field point would always penetrate the most. which I believe to be true because there was the least amount of friction. But when we did the field point, we found that the point of drag was then the fletchings.
Yeah.
So by creating a little space in the beginning, the fletchings probably pass through with a lot less resistance, maybe creating more penetration or whatever. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting, fun to do. These things are fun. I think they're practical. I think there's lessons to be learned. But if we just look at history and what most good hunters use, we're not reinventing the wheel.
No, I think we're just trying to reinforce the wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it makes good content and stuff. But I definitely don't want to, my sweet spot's not like the science world. That's not what I want to make necessarily. I want to make stuff that's more fun. Maybe you learn a nugget or two and have fun.
Yeah, and entertainment based, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what you excel at. I mean, you're good at all of it. Don't get me wrong, but I think your heart's more in that. You can see that.
Yeah.
In what you do. But watching stuff blow up's entertaining too.
It is
you
fun.
Get stuff
yeah.
to blow up.
That's fun.
Little explosions are always fun, and watching reactions to things when you hit them, that's fun.
It is fun.
It's good stuff.
Well, man, let's talk about my Idaho hunt. I really enjoyed that. I came back from an Idaho general mule deer hunt, general season, rifle tag. First rifle tag that I seriously hunted, and I don't remember. It's been a long time. So I've taken my rifle after bears, so I lie. That was a couple years ago, or 2 years ago, I shot my last rifle with a bear. But rifle
I mean,
hunt's
bear with a rifle?
Bear with rifle. Yeah.
It sounded better the other way.
Man, I'm really starting to love mule deer hunting. It's climbing the list of animals I like to chase, and it's largely due to where they inhabit.
Mm-hmm.
Big, high mountain ranges, wild country. It's just a really fun scene to be hunting something, chasing something.
Oh yeah, beautiful environment. I mean, if you're hunting mountain mule deer, there's scabline mule deer and things like that.
Yeah.
Are a little different, which is the mule deer hunting I did before I started trying to dedicate more of my time to elk hunting. And it's a ball. I mean, mule deer are very fun to hunt. They're I don't know if they're underrated per se, because there are a lot of people that mule deer hunt, but they're a great challenge in some of the neatest environments you're ever going to hunt.
Yeah. Interesting environments. And, in some of that country, they can be up in sheep country, man.
Yeah. Yeah, they can get way up there.
They can be in sheep country, and some of those bigger bucks can be more sheepish than mule deerish. So, yeah, I think I just see it as something I will continue to pursue more of as I kind of develop, what is more of the long-term hunting portfolio. I like being able to pack it out in one load too,
It doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt to be able to functionally get out one time and not have to go back, especially when you're talking a lot of elevation change and things like that.
Yeah. And it is a change of pace to get used to that amount of glassing, man. Like when you're spending most of your day glassing, looking through your optics, it makes you really start to value your optics more. And just being good at glassing, glassing is one of those things where it's so subjective how good a person is at glassing.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever I've hunted with someone who's an experienced Western hunter, they're good at glassing.
Oh, 100%.
And I think I have a lot to learn yet.
Isn't there an academy or a school or something on that?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I heard there was. I think Aaron Snyder's involved in it. That they're actually teaching you how to glass, which is incredibly smart because finding animals via optics is actually really hard. There's there's one, but there's tips and tactics to being able to effectively find critters, and that would probably be worth a guy's time. I know they do it. I want to say it's in a camp type environment, like you go somewhere and you stay a couple of days and whatnot, and they go over tactics and techniques on how to actually grid and glass.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
It's a skill to develop for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're talking gear for a second here, optics I've normally ran with 10s, and I think 10s are great for finding animals, especially when you're covering country. But when you really want to peel something apart, and I think my carry in the future for mule deer hunting, if I'm not just glassing wide ass open country, is going to be 12s.
Yeah, all the
Just that extra layer of detail.
all the binos that I've owned over the years, for glassing, the ones I've enjoyed the most have been 12s because you get a little more, you see a little more clear, you see a little farther. Maybe not as big a field of view, but it's really handy, and you can tend to hold 12 steady without a tripod. But that's like kind of where it peters out, unless you have like a pressure issue, like you have a hard time holding your hand steady to begin with.
Yeah.
12 to me is ideal. I had a pair of Leicas back in the day that were 12s. I wish they'd make some of the rangefinder binoculars in 12s without making them, bigger in the front. Just give me like a 1242 or a 1250 would be really nice to see. Because I prefer to have kind of like an all-in-one if I'm going to buy a really expensive optic. There's so many good ones out there now that have rifle beneficial characteristic ballistic things internal with them, so you're carrying less stuff overall. No different than the concept of carrying a rangefinder binocular eliminates the need to carry a rangefinder and a binocular. It's one thing. And if you can also not carry a Kestrel with you or have to pull out your phone to do an app or something like that, would be nice. So if you're a multiple weapon hunter, which I am, I'm primarily a bow hunter, but I still rifle hunt, and I still want the ability to use my equipment effectively for rifle. There's several out there that do a really good job of providing all that detailed information in one spot. Your character, or your typical high-end optics, your Swaro, your Leica, your Zeiss, they all make a really good one. I know SIG came out with a supposedly relatively good one. I haven't looked through it, so I don't know how it stacks up clarity-wise, but they came out with a pretty good one.
Well, on my need list, coming back from this hunt, I need some 12s. I've been delaying putting off a good spotter. I basically ran with this a little 11 to 33 made by Vortex, which is a really handy little, if you need something light, it's as light as it gets. But it's just okay as optic quality.
How often did you use it?
I used it maybe 10% of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, maybe 20% of the time. Yeah. I used it when I wanted to see, what did the animal look like. And then after I picked apart a hillside with my 10s and I felt it was good enough to go back to, I would go to the spotter and try to pick it apart.
So what did you, if you had a wish list for that trip again, what would you have wished you had?
Yeah, I wish I would have had 12s. I wish I would have had a higher power spotter.
How much higher, though, do you think you really need?
I'd have to look at spotter models, but I know they make something like a 22 to 50. That would have been more ideal. I didn't need that top end power to glass from miles away.
Well, most of the ones that I've looked at in the high end have like 20 to 60.
Yeah, 20 to 60 would have been great.
20, and that's your most common. And you got it in different objective front ends. You got like 65 or an 80, that kind of thing. But that typically would cover most people, other than you get into that 60 and you're talking some weight. It's not light, especially if it's good quality glass. There's a lot of glass in it. So it gets heavier in that scenario. So it's a kind of a trade-off of, are you glassing from something that has a motor, or are you glassing off of your back where you just got done hiking a freaking really long ways, and do you really want to carry all the extra weight?
Yeah.
Which is the nice thing about a 12 is what I found when I was walking around with 12s, I didn't really feel I needed a spotter unless it was like way out there. 12 got it done enough that I could say, yeah, I'd go after that animal or not.
Yeah.
Typically.
Well, and a lot of times your spotter is more to, you're either picking apart details, or it's like, hey, in my situation, it was like, okay, there's a nicely framed deer. Got out the spotter. Let's see the details, that kind of thing.
Sure, you're trying to weigh out, is it worth going all the way over to where you're looking at? Yeah, how nice is he? Am I going after this sucker in this scenario?
The other thing on my wish list is, I tent camped, and I've just tent camped for most of my Western hunting, or slept in the back of my truck, and I'm ready for like a little more of a at-home setup, something a little more comfortable.
Timmy, want a little pull-behind trailer, do you, or a camper, or what are you thinking?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of options,
There's some really cool stuff these days.
I hate taking a truck and not making it a truck. So when you start talking about throwing shit on top of the truck and stuff, those things are so cool, but then you lose the ability for it to be a truck and throw stuff in the bed.
Right.
And I hate that. So I could see, having a more luxurious tent set up with cots and that kind of thing. That might be the solution. Getting a camper into a place is pretty sweet too. You know, like being able to roll in with a camper, and if it's raining, just a small camper, you know, it doesn't have to be much. But you limit your mobility getting in and out of the mountains.
Sure.
For sure.
Yeah,
but it's all, everything's a trade-off, right?
I've gone back and forth so many times on what the right little thing is. I have a small pickup bed camper at my property that I stay in whenever I go up there, and it's more than big enough for anything I do. But now it's kind of a pain in the ass to get those in and out of your bed of your truck. So if you're trying to separate your vehicle from it, so then your brain goes into, okay, so then I need a trailer, not a truck bed camper. But then you take that same scenario and go, well, are you taking a UTV with you? Because if you're taking a UTV, now you need a trailer that can haul a UTV and still a camper. And then you start talking about a toy hauler, and then you're talking probably a minimum of a 22-foot, 24-foot toy hauler at that point. And you're starting to get a really big machine at that point to get into where you're going. So it's just so tough. One of the neatest things I think I ever saw was a guy I've known a long time. His name's Joe Oshner. He had bought an old toy hauler that was literally just like the front of it was a bed, and then it was a toy hauler, right? And it still had a sink and all that stuff in it, which he ran it dry. He didn't ever use water in it, so he didn't have to worry about it freezing. But he put an actual wood fireplace in it. And man, how nice would that be? You get back and you can actually dry your stuff out, because anyone who's ever used a camper, if you're using propane to heat, it's wet. Your stuff doesn't ever really get super dry at night. Whereas wood heat, like this, is dry heat. Like it'll take water out of stuff like that. And that was just really neat that he actually managed to rig it up to where that was in there. It was safe, it was secure, and you could still pull a UTV into it. But once again, you got to go, how long can I get away with taking it into the mountains? And, does this thing need to be higher off the ground?
Well, I'll tell you where my brain goes is if you're a solo hunter, I think the absolute nuns buns is basically something on top of the camp on top type setup, and then a rack on the back you throw a dirt bike on. But dirt bikes, they kind of suck getting around the mountains too, because you don't want to be watching your ass all the time. It's so easy to dump a dirt bike.
Yeah.
And if you're riding with a rifle or a bow, you don't want to tumble those things. So dirt bikes have their pros and cons as well. But I guess you could have one of those old like Honda, what do they call those things? Like a Honda wide
trail bike.
Yeah, those would be sick.
I have one actually. Well, it was my dad's. Forrest was rebuilding the carb. It like puttered out or whatnot, but it's old Trail 110.
Yeah, Trail 110.
Yep. They made a Trail 90 and a Trail 110, if I remember correctly. But it's got a little rack on the back, and it's still just a bike. It's not, I guess it's not as squirrely, but it's still, you can still dump it. I mean, it's still two wheels, right? You
I haven't rode one, but I've heard good things.
They're stable. It's just a little putter around. They're good, low gearing and whatnot. They work good.
Yeah. So if you're solo, that's a pretty sweet setup. And this was a solo hunt, by the way. So I ended up down there solo. I ended up 6 days. And, I have a love-hate with solo hunting. I think everyone should do some version of solo travel at some point, because it really, you don't have anything to hide from.
Sure.
You just have to, it gives you an opportunity to like look inside in a way that you almost never will. Whether it seems that way or not, if you always have another person around, you can just kind of filter things through that person.
Sure.
So I really have a love-hate with solo hunting, but I just see it as being more and more impractical for the things I want to do. Like, I want to produce really high-quality hunting films when I go. And to do that on your own just becomes such a chore, And say you and I went on this hunt. When I located this buck, I could have hung back, or I could have went in and you could have hung back and gave me signals. Hey, is that buck still there? Did he move out?
Yeah, hunting by yourself is really, really, really hard.
So
like you can almost always benefit from another person.
It's like an odds multiplier to have another person with you.
But it's also a scent multiplier and a noise multiplier. So it depends on what you're doing.
Exactly.
The type of hunting you're mostly doing is so much better with two people. It's just hard to do that by yourself. It really is. Yeah.
So I just see myself doing less and less of it as I continue to hunt more. But on the other side of it, like, there's nothing quite like being in the mountains by yourself. It's one of a kind.
Sure.
You know, it's one of a kind. You're sitting up on these high peaks by yourself, and that leaves some real time to think about, you know, where you've been, where you're going, and what you want. And if you never get that kind of time, man, it can be really invaluable.
Oh, I agree. Nothing will bring you clarity than some time by yourself.
Yeah.
Without distraction.
But to kind of summarize the hunt, found a pretty good buck in a burn. Located him twice, moved in twice. The first time I moved in, I kind of side hilled in, and there was a doe that was close to me that bumped out, that bumped the whole group. And I'm not sure on that day if the buck I saw exiting was the buck I then saw the next time, because this buck exiting looked like he had a pretty big frame. How big, I don't know. It was just a big framed mule deer exiting. And had a person been ready on the gun, I mean, they probably could have slung a shot or two. I wasn't trying to do that. So 2 days later, I relocated a group, and there was a good buck in there. I don't know if he was a 3-point or 4-point, big frame. Moved in on these deer, and I thought I had a really high quality chance of getting a shot on these deer. They fed into a spot where I knew distinctly where they were. There weren't a lot of spots for them to hide. And I was able to follow contour most of the way. I was able to get down in a creek bottom, follow contour. And at the last spot, I had to cross about 100 or 150 yards. Sun beating down on me, say 600 or 700 yards away, and then swirl in behind this next piece of contour and come up on that knob and get my shot, relocate the deer and get the shot. And I don't know if these deer saw me cross that last crossing or they just disappeared. But either way, I didn't relocate them. And that was my last best shot at, you know, that deer.
And that would have been beneficial to leave somebody behind watching.
Totally, dude. It would have been a home run. You could have been sitting back there on the knob, like, you know, helping me relocate these deer or telling me, hey, the stock's over, you know.
Yep.
But, you know, you can always play that game. But I've just seen that situation a lot where hunting with another good hunting partner is an odds multiplier.
Sure.
You know?
Always is.
Yeah, I believe that to be true. I think in most situations, it depends what you're hunting or whatever, but if you got one solid person, because if the group gets too big, you know, then it's hard too.
Yeah. Yeah. A 2-person team's really a really good way to go about it. I mean,
And if you can
3 can be beneficial depending, but if you're all carrying a tag and you're all hunting the same thing, then it's like, all right, now if you're being fair about it, you should be taking turns with each opportunity. And that means you're getting a third of the opportunities. So it all depends. Whereas at least with 2 people, you're splitting. So you're getting every other opportunity because there's only so much time, you know, and don't get me wrong, when it is multiple people like that and it works out and everybody gets their animal, it's really cool, but the odds go down in that.
Yeah.
And you'd almost be better at being 4 people, 2 people per team, and you go over there and we go over here and we'll meet back at dinner or something, you know, after dark, that kind of thing, and hash out our day, see what we found, you know, that kind of thing. But hunting in a 2-person team is really, I think, ideal for most of the type of hunting that you do.
One thing I was going to say, though, when we were talking about, you know, different camp options is, you know, it could be hard to beat just a good old-fashioned wall tent camp with a good group of guys, you know.
Yeah.
Takes a little bit of time to set up, whatever. So there's your downside. But then you have a little bit of insulation, wood stove, protection from the elements.
Oh, wall tent's a really good way to go.
More portability to get into the mountains.
It's definitely a big commitment to do.
It is, yeah.
It doesn't. You can't just hook onto it and drive away.
Yeah,
which is kind of the nice thing about a small little camper trailer. If you could, I still think overall your best bet's probably a very small little toy hauler, because figuring myself, I look at it from my own standpoint. I'm almost always taking a UTV with me.
Yeah.
Right. And so maybe I can't get in as far as I want to with what I have, but I also have a piece of equipment that's going to make it really easy to get in farther every day.
Yep.
Which will come in handy at some point, whether I need it or not. It will come in handy. Use the crap out of it. So like I've had lots of different things. The negative to a trailer is if you ever wanted to use that for like going boating or something like that, we can't hook onto a trailer and a boat. But outside of that, I think there's some severe advantage for a very small toy hauler to be kind of the ultimate little hunting man's trailer.
Yeah.
Personally, and I may have to have one someday. I don't have a big toy hauler, but I'm not taking that in the mountains. A small one would be nice to have.
Or you go like even a little smaller, and you go small camper, and then you go ATV in the back of the truck kind of thing. That could be sweet too.
Yeah, I like the UTV.
Yeah, I know.
I really do, man. Now that
Yeah.
I've had one for like 9 or 10 years. I have a perfectly good 4-wheeler. That thing sits. I never use it. There's something about being able to have a glass
Enclosure.
windshield, a top, a back, a heater. I mean, dude, it's doors. It's really nice, and especially to be able to keep your equipment safe. You know, it's not just that. It's now I'm sitting on top of an ATV, so everything's out in the elements, including my bow, including my binos, including all my gear. Everything's, strapped to me, and you're not getting that, opportunity to warm up, and that kind of thing. I have a hard time not incorporating a UTV in everything I do anymore, unless they take you to areas where you can't use one.
One thing I was pretty happy about was I had my rifle on back of the 4-wheeler the whole time, and the roads are just like they are. So you're rattling the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And all I could think is, man, I've had this rifle and I've banged it around on my 4-wheeler a lot, but, hopefully this thing stays on. And I shot it about every 2 days I was down there, and it stayed on and held true the whole time. So that was good. There's definitely going to be people who ask about rifles. Actually, surprisingly, people love guns, dude. I mean, we always talk about bows, but I posted a little bit about a gun, and everyone was like, hey, what is that thing? So the hunting rifle I have, and I haven't had a lot of them. When I did this, I basically was like, hey, how can I set up a good long-range gun? Not like a true Dougie Fresh long-range competition gun, but a good long-range gun that I can shoot confidently. I settled on a Christensen 6.5 Creedmoor. I think it's called the long-range version, so it's kind of got like the pistol grip.
Or a chassis.
And a little higher cheekbone or whatever.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's got a muzzle brake on the front. It's got a carbon barrel. It's a really beautiful gun. But basically, I was able to set it up and went through the process of like breaking in the barrel, setting it up. And I've shot it out to like 800 yards very accurately. So with factory ammunition.
There's some really good, well, that 6.5 Creedmoor is inherently accurate in most instances, but there's some really good stuff out there. Like what they're making now, thanks in large part to people like Dougie Fresh, who, test things, how far they can really go and constantly push the limit and constantly, are using a new caliber or new style of bullets or whatever, just everything you can do to get farther precision. It's made that a more commonplace thing, and now like you can buy, like I'm building a Defiance Action 300 Win just because of the versatility and the availability of the ammunition. But I got a pre-built barrel. I just had to screw it on. I mean, you almost don't need a gunsmith anymore to do some of this stuff. And you're talking a precision, like that kind of accuracy, and something that you can get over the counter. Proof went and took a whole bunch of different actions and just pre-chamber them. So you can buy a chambered barrel that's a high quality, high-end thing that screws onto an action and not need a machinist, which is pretty amazing. Like, it's a testament to where that is going and how crazy accurate it is. I mean, it was 2 years ago now. I shot my bull in Idaho in the rifle. You get like 5 days of rifle as an archer. And I shot it with a 338 Lapua at 820 yards and dropped it. Like, didn't move. I think I missed by 2 inches off of where I was aiming at 820 yards. And I think I shot that gun 40 times.
Did you hold for windage at all?
There wasn't any. And I missed by 2 inches because when I got over to the other side, there was a small breeze coming down that you couldn't feel or see from my side, because it was across like the mountains go like this way and then come back out this way. And we're coming around here and they're over there and there was nothing in between. So there wasn't, I mean, I was looking down the bottoms trying to see if I could see grass moving or nothing. Couldn't see nothing. It was just.
When you made that shot, did you have a rest for the back of the gun too?
Yeah, I threw my bag out. Like
so you had something for the back, something for the front?
I have, I'm trying to remember what they call it. Armageddon Gears bag, and it's has like light stuff in it, they call it, and it's this material. It's filled, doesn't weigh nothing. It's like really light.
That's cool.
So carrying it around isn't a big deal as long as you don't mind carrying the bag. So I always kept that with me so I could get a good, secure, lower position, and it was like a rock.
Yeah, because I've heard a few people talk about in hunting situations. I'm sure it's the same for like Doug, but Doug's the shop manager of the online side of things, and he's like Josh's best friend. So when we say Doug, that's who we're talking about. We had him on the podcast before. Doug's hobby and passion is long range.
Yep.
But I've heard
He infected me with it.
Yeah, I heard
sucker.
like shooting over 500 or 600 yards, you really want that back rest.
Just wonder if we should put some more on there or not. You think? I still feel chilly. Do you feel chilly? Like it's cold.
Yeah, we can throw it on.
Let me grab something else.
Anyway, I'll talk for a second.
Yeah,
but yeah, Doug's way into long range. He competes. He's good at it, and yeah, man, it's a fun little hobby. And it's kind of nice that as a recreational shooter, you can get pretty dangerous pretty quickly with some of these new actions. And I don't intend to shoot. I don't ever really want to shoot an animal more than 500 yards. So it gives me a lot of confidence knowing the gun is capable of shooting 800, 900, 1,000.
My first real experience with that was going down to Dougie's range, and I had a 6.5 Creedmoor. I had his previous year's target gun.
Yeah.
He was like, "Oh, just give me like a half hour. I'll show you how to do it. I'll teach you all this stuff." And I'm just, a sponge of glue because I don't know anything. I'd shot guns before, and I was relatively accurate when I shot them, but I'm sure those are transitional skills from archery. And went down there, and like a half hour later, I'm shooting 1,200 yards in a group the size of a pie plate. I'm like, what the frick is this?
It's awesome.
Oh, it's crazy. I was like, I don't get it. He's like, oh yeah, man, if you got a good gun and good optics, which it's probably more good optics than good gun. I mean, your gun's got to duplicate, but the optics are insane when you start moving them in and out a lot. Mm-hmm. Like how they're made and what they're made out of and who makes them makes a pretty big difference in when you start moving your stuff in and out and move your left to rights on turrets. When you're trying to move distances, how well they go back to zero makes a pretty big difference, and you're not going to get that with something cheap. So I mean, you're gonna spend $1,500 to $3,500 on a good scope that will functionally do that. Yeah, I mean, just balling out of control. It's a lot of money on a scope, but once you've done it once, it gets easier to do it a second time or a third time.
And the higher end optics actually don't depreciate too much.
No.
Yeah.
No, typically, if you buy it, you're probably not losing much if you go to sell it 2-3 years down the road, because they typically do get more expensive. But yeah, it's and there's not much of a substitute for Night Force. I mean, they really make the best scopes, but I've got a couple of the Leopold Mark Vs that I've had really good luck with that seem to track back and forth well. But anytime I've used something that was like lesser quality, it seemed to be a little inconsistent when you start moving it back and forth and trying to maintain that over and over and over. But that being said, I still haven't done it nearly as much as I'd like to. Maybe when I just stop working so damn much and take a little more playtime that isn't just related around hunting or prepping something for hunting like I tend to do.
Well, you kind of got like your foot out the door. Josh is about to go on an old Midwestern whitetail hunt. And I'm like, you're kind of like a Pacific Northwest guy.
Oh, yeah.
And I grew up in the Midwest.
Tell me what to prepare for, Timmy.
So I
have no idea.
I'm going to quiz you on your cold weather gear here, and we'll just do a little assessment here.
Okay.
Okay, so.
Still packing, so.
Tell us about how what you're going to wear in the stand.
Well, granted, I'm a PNW guy, but we do get cold in the winter.
It does. It gets chilly cold.
It does get chilly cold, and I have a layering system that I've used now for like 5 or 6 years, and I've really never gotten cold. I wear an insulated pair of boots, not packs or anything like that, just Crispies that are insulated. They're
do you know how many grams?
They're only 400 gram.
You're gonna want more.
No, I have a cheat system.
You got something that goes like a puffy around your feet or something?
Yeah, I use a heater bodysuit.
Oh, heater. Okay, that's going to keep you warm.
Yeah, so I wear.
You're going to pack a heater bodysuit to Minnesota?
Yes. Have you ever used one?
I've heard of. No, I'm just wondering how much space.
If you've ever used one, you will find a way to pack it.
Yeah.
So, I wear. I'll wear like a merino base layer, usually about a midweight, something like that. I'll wear wool socks, typically merino. Mm-hmm. A pair of lighter weight wool pants, and then I will wear a pair of my Sitka bibs. They're lighter ones, not the heavier ones. And then up top, I'll use a merino hoodie as a base layer. I usually use a Traverse as a mid layer and I'll almost always wear a vest. And then I have my dad's super thick sleeping Indian vest. It's like 20 years old.
Is it wool?
Yeah, it's wool, and then it's got an insulation layer and like a sheepskin on the inside of it. Like it's super bougie warm. And then I have a really heavyweight Sitka. I think that's the Celsius or whatever. It doesn't have anything other than like windstopper in it. Mm-hmm. And then I'll use a heater bodysuit as like an extra layer. And sometimes I'll leave the thing halfway unzipped because I'm just not cold. But I've had, sitting there in instances where I'm like super cold. I made the mistake once. The first time I hunted over with my buddy Nick in Oroville, had everything all set up, bring everything in. Like I'm not wearing that much hiking into where I'm going. I'm got a whole giant bag full of stuff, but not wearing it on me so I don't get all sweaty. And I made the mistake of trying to get out of my suit and then take my stuff off, and then a deer came in, and I just waited and didn't zip it back on. And man, by the time I got out, I thought I was going to die. Like I was shaking so bad and so cold. I had no idea how much that was keeping me warm with how cold it was outside. Because I want to say it was like 5 degrees outside, and just having it open and having taken my main coat off and then stuck for like 10, 15 minutes, I was shivering so freaking hard that the whole hike back out, which was a pretty good hike, I never warmed up. I got back to my my General, which had a heater in it, started it, and couldn't get, like it was so cold out, it never started blowing hot heat because the coolant inside's got to get to a certain temperature to get the heat to work. And it was so cold outside, the coolant wouldn't heat up. And I mean, I'm driving, like I'm revving the engine and everything, trying to get the coolant to heat up to get it to blow cold air or warm air. And it just never did the whole way driving back to his house. I was just like shivering hard. Never make that mistake again. I don't take a layer off until I am absolutely leaving instead of sitting with it. But for anyone who hunts in really cold weather, I can't recommend a heater bodysuit enough. It's it's cheating. It really is. Because before I found that product, I froze to death every time I sat in late season. I don't know what it is. I don't know if my circulation sucks when I'm not moving in cold weather. It would never matter how many layers I wore, how much good stuff I had. I would get cold. And I would get cold to the extent that it would feel like it took me 3 days to feel warm again. Like I was just chilled to the bone inherently. And man, after I bought that thing, I just don't ever want, I have 2 of them now. I don't ever want to go without it. I have a black one and I have a camel one.
Got 2 of them.
I got 2 of them because, dude, it's cold.
It's funny,
like
dude.
it is freaking cold. And,
Yeah, no, I've heard those things are great.
Well, I can't. So I relate it to what would I wear walking around in this temperature? Like if I was just still hunting, walking around, moving from place to place, never standing still for more than 2 or 3 minutes, right? How much layer would I wear? That's what I wear, and then I put that on.
Yeah.
So it works really good for when you're wherever you're coming and going. Right. And that's kind of the only thing you need. And frequently, as you sit longer, like I'd leave it like open to my crotch. And as you sit there for a half hour, an hour, you're like, all right, maybe we need to zip this up a little bit. And then another hour or so goes by and you've got it all the way shut and your head's sticking out of it. And you're just like, oh, you can feel the heat pouring up your neck.
Now, when a deer comes in, you're getting ready for a shot, you got to pull half of it down, right?
So how it's set up is you have to unzip it, which is a big, wide plastic zipper. So it's very quiet to open, but it does make noise. And I'll open it like a tooth by a tooth as I go if I'm not in a massive hurry, and keep my fingers pressed on the zipper. And I can't hear it. Like, and I've never had an animal turn and look while I'm trying to unzip it slowly. If
But
I'm
to
just
be
going
ready
tooth
to
by
shoot,
tooth.
you need how much of it down?
You need to get it down to at least like above your belly button. And then it's strapped to you. So like there's straps on the inside of the suit that go over your shoulders. So I'll get it down to like above my belly button. I'll bring my hand out and grab my bow and then bring my other end. I'm going to move this for a second. Like that. And then lift. And then once I'm like that, the suit's behind me. So the rest of it can stay. It doesn't matter. So I'm like that. And then I'll bring it down to wherever I'm going to point and then draw my bow back. And it's still on you, but it's not obstructing you from pulling or shooting. And it works like really, really well. I won't hunt in late season without it. I don't even care if it's even that cold. I'm like, I'm taking it no matter what. It's not that heavy.
Yeah.
The amount of clothes I would need to take with me to offset that weighs way more than what it weighs. It's a bag that keeps all your heat against you.
Which is a big deal.
It is. It works in a very similar fashion to like bunny boots or whatnot. If you ever looked at there's like an air layer between you and the outside, and it's the heat that comes off of you stays in that bag and doesn't leave, which is why you can feel the heat pouring up your neck because hot air rises, and it's just every time you're sitting in there, it feels like you got a little heater on. It's cheating, and I'll take it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, that's cool. So if you're not a heater bodysuit guy, here's a couple cold weather hunting cheat codes. You got to protect your exterior. You got to protect your head. A lot of people, you lose heat through your head.
80% of your heat's
your feet,
head.
and your hands. And for your hands, it's really hard to beat one of those little, it looks like what a quarterback wears.
Yeah.
Yeah. It looks like what a quarterback wears. And you can just keep your hands inside of it. And that's my favorite for bow hunting because you can keep your hands nimble.
Yeah.
I hate shooting with gloves on, especially if they're bigger gloves. So having one of those, wool is your best friend, especially wool for base layers. And if you're going to wear like a big heavy hat, I would even still wear like a little merino beanie under it. There's a lightweight merino beanie that it just keeps your head breathing. And I like that. And then for your feet, I think there's two ways you can do it. There's, you can just wear a heavy ass boot, which you probably need like for most cold weather, 800, 1,000, 1,200, 1,500, 2,000. I think that's where a lot of Western guys fuck up is they don't wear heavy enough boots because you're not really walking far, or typically you don't have to walk far. Or you go with a lighter boot and then you can put something on the outside of it. Like they make some cool like puffy products where you can just like put a puffy over your feet, which is kind of cool. Yeah, they have really good puffy systems now. So if you're like a Western guy that wants to stay warm, you can go like puffy for your feet, puffy legs, puffy coat, and keep your head and your hands warm and you're balling. So.
Yeah, the head's really number one. People do overlook it a lot. Like I will not be sitting in a tree stand with a mohawk. And if your feet get cold, I will have something on my head.
It ruins your hunt. You can't recover from cold feet.
Yeah.
So, yeah, protect those things. That little whatever you call those things, the pouch.
I call it a hand sock.
Hand sock.
Yeah, I don't know what they call it, but I call it a hand sock.
Those things are money. Yeah. So
very handy little thing to have. Or you just sit in a heater bodysuit.
Heater bodysuit.
Because, dude, it's so warm. I hated hunting late season for like 10 years. Like, I hated it. It's the best time to be hunting, right? But I hated every minute of it because every time I went, I froze. And I had wool. I had whatever product you needed, I got it. It doesn't matter. I mean, my dad owned a general sporting goods store, and I got a discount. I bought anything that you needed to try to stay warm, and it didn't matter what you did. And then this $400 thing that nobody had, mind you, there wasn't a dealer from Montana my way, period. There wasn't one in the West at the time. And I called the company and set up a dealership just so I could buy one.
Oh, nice.
I was like, so does this thing really work? And do you really guarantee it? And like, yep, absolutely, 100%. You get cold, send it back, we'll give you a full refund.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, that seems worth it. Can I do that as a dealer and actually just set up an account? And then for the first, I think, 4 years of that, I stocked them. I'd order them in mid-September. And
would people buy a few out here?
As long as it snows. Like if we get a cold snap, absolutely. Like that phone starts ringing going, do you have this in stock? Frequently. And now I don't think I've ordered them in a year or two.
And they're battery powered?
No.
No?
It's a sleeping bag. It looks like a child's onesie.
Isn't there an option to get a battery powered heater suit?
There might be. I'm not aware of it though. But I don't know why you would, because I've never gotten cold.
Yeah.
Like, as long as you wore what you were comfortable walking around in that temperature, you did not get cold. You just didn't. Like, which is why I was like, 400 thin slate boots, fine, because my feet are inside it and they don't get cold. And I mean, I've sat negative temps.
Do you know on this upcoming hunt, are you going to try to do all day sits?
I have no idea.
Those are brutal, dude.
I've done it. It sucks. I don't like it. I really don't. Yeah. You get about halfway through that day and you're just like, wow, maybe I don't need to hold out for such a big deal because this sucks.
They're bad.
Yeah.
They're real bad.
They are bad. We'll see. I don't know. It's like I'm at the mercy of what they tell me we're doing. So
you're just there for the program, yeah.
I'm there for the program. Whatever it is what I will do. If you want me to sit here all day. Well, you have to. There's restrictions. Like you're not allowed to shoot a smaller deer. You know, you just go home without a deer in that scenario, which is cool. I like that they're, you know, that's part of management and making sure and ensuring that you're growing in your area, which is good. I respect that. And I will not shoot a deer if it comes down to it. That's fine. I'd like to shoot a deer, you know, paid for a tag and going all that way and flying and, you know, whatnot. But
is it about a week commitment you got?
Yeah. Yeah. I leave Thursday. I come back Wednesday night.
Thursday, and will you be in the stand Friday?
I don't, if it's Friday, it'll be Friday evening. I'm pretty sure we're in meetings, in Sparta in the morning. So I'm getting picked up. We're grabbing a hotel right by the airport because we're getting in at like midnight, and then my rep's picking us up first thing in the morning, driving us to the factory, and then off to where we're going. So, yeah, I would imagine I'm probably not hunting Friday evening, but maybe. I bet you it's more Saturday and on Saturday, and then we fly back Wednesday. So I don't know if worst case comes down to it, if we're hunting Wednesday morning or not.
Yeah.
My guess is not. I think our flight's out at like 2 p.m. So,
do you know what your forecast is looking like?
very good.
Cold
Ideal.
weather?
Cold weather.
Nice.
Yeah, where I was looking at the temps, and I didn't pay any attention to our own weather. I was looking at theirs, and I was like, do I really need to bring my heater suit? And then I looked at the lows, and it's like 20. I'm like, yeah, I'll bring it. That's fine.
Better safe than sorry.
Dude, I sat in that thing at 50 degrees once because I was just like, it's just so comfy. And I didn't even put the straps on. I just had my lower body in it. Like, why wouldn't I use it? It's warm.
Yeah.
Like, I feel cozy. I feel like I mean, if you gave me a recliner in there, I'd start snoring. It's just so comfy. So yeah, man, if it's cold weather, I'm using it, and I don't care. I really don't.
And I know you haven't. You're typically not filming hunts, but are you filming this one?
No.
Okay, that's cool.
Nope. If they wanted to, I'd let them, but they're not. So
Yeah.
no filming. It's just for the glory,
Just
private glory, not the
for
public
fun,
glory.
man, which is cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people that have to do that, I feel for them, man. I mean, you're putting in another level of pressure, and you're turning it into a job. And I've turned like everything I've enjoyed into a job in my life. I really don't want to turn that into a job too.
Yeah.
I just don't. You know, if I'm successful, I'll post a picture or something, but
Yeah.
I don't care at all.
Yeah. I've been pretty good about just hunting still pure. You know, I try to capture it, and a lot of it is I like to be able to watch it back later and have the story to share. But
Sure.
I've heard stories of guys like looking at animals and thinking about, you know, I should shoot this. I need to shoot this. I have sponsor obligations.
Yep. I've known many people over the years that have been down that road, and it sucks the fun out of it.
Bad way to muddy up something that's super pure, you know?
It is that, like, man, if I shoot this animal right now, and maybe it's not really what I want, but then I can get it on film, and I can go do the next hunt and get more film done, and more film done, and more film done, and I just, I mean, I understand and appreciate the sharing of it, but there's just too much pressure involved with being successful on the hunt for the kind of hunting that I'm doing and that you're doing. Maybe not everybody's doing, but you know, you get to a certain point and a certain level, you're going to be provided with opportunities that are probably easier to be successful with, right? And when you've got that, maybe then to where it's not affecting your ability to be successful, but most of the time you throw a cameraman into the mix, you're lowering your successfulness, right? And
Makes it harder.
well, it's one thing to have another person there and shoot an animal. It's a whole other thing to have them watch it happen. Like, usually another person's not actually seeing the shot. There's numerous times where I've been with a buddy who shot something, and I was close, but I couldn't see it because I was doing my job, and my job was not to watch. Right? Well, if you throw a cameraman in there, his job is to be on your hip and record it all. So that most likely means 3 people in that scenario, and that's another third the scent, another third the noise. I mean, it's tough.
Yeah.
I have a lot of respect for people who do that successfully because it makes it so much harder
Yeah, it does.
on something that's already pretty hard to do. It really is. So
It makes it mucho difficulte.
right. Is that a word?
I
Difficulty.
think it's definitely a word.
Does that translate?
Yeah.
Nice.
I just threw a grip modifier on my fluid.
Your target bow?
Yeah, what's it called? Reckoning.
Reckoning Gen 2
Yeah.
36.
Yeah, I just threw a grip modifier on my Reckoning Gen 2, and I could see that being very sweet. I put my hand on it, my hand wouldn't move, fidget, budge at all.
Yeah.
So I see some value in that. I mean, it's early, so I definitely got to get some arrows through it and report back, and I will report back. But I see some value, and I see as that just being a area of opportunity to tinker that I think a lot of people don't necessarily look to.
Yeah, there's definitely some advantages to grip tape or whatever product you choose to use in that scenario that forces your hand to stay in the same position, which is very good. I mean, if your hand gets sweaty and you're on a slick surface, it's going to move around more. And at the end of the day, if you don't hold the bow the same every time, it won't go in the same spot. So, yeah, there's definitely some benefit to that.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll report back. We got a beautiful fire here, and fire's not out, but we're out.
We's out.
You got to go hunting, dog.
Peace.
Where can the people find out if you got some?
I will
post?
I will post it on Instagram if I shoot something.
It's going to be your quarterly post?
It's hard in hunting season, man. The first thing to go for me is always going to be posting daily about my life. If I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off, I don't have time. I need to do a better job. I know. Give me a hard time.
Yeah.
Fine. Slap on the wrist.
Yeah, it's all good.
Slap my hand. It's all good. I'll do a better job.
It's the first thing that should go. I mean,
I'll do a better job.
Yeah.
I will. But I've already done like 9 bow reviews already. I'm freaking busy, man. It takes a lot. There's 9 or 10 because there's a decent amount that aren't published yet.
It's an exciting time of year. We'll be able to talk about all that stuff very soon.
Yep. I think the latest out is mid-November. So after November 15th, it's all public knowledge and lots of goodies, and hopefully you're all excited. Christmas. It's archery Christmas.
So wherever you're listening to this, watching, subscribe, leave us a review. We need those things.
It does help. It does help for other people to see good positive feedback or terrible feedback. I mean, if we're really bad at this, you can put that out there too. I'd appreciate it if you wouldn't, but if that's really how you feel, do it.
I'd appreciate it if that's the case. You just go listen to another podcast you like better.
That's true. You could do that.
Yeah. All right, guys. We will catch you back next time.
See ya.
Why do you...
I'll tell you, I think I am going to zip these things to the leg. Zip tie 'em.